So we have literally hightailed here straight from Italy. If you want contrast, how's Misano to Cadwell Park for a complete flip of temperature, track width and circumstances? To be honest, the food at the cafe this morning was pretty good, so I think Cadwell's doing pretty damn well. We've just jumped off Panigale V4S at Misano. I mean, that eats big horsepower bikes. You just don't feel like you're on a 230 horsepower bike when you've got that much space around you. Cadwell is the polar opposite. So this RSV4's got its work cut out because, frankly, around Cadwell Park, a moped feels fast. So this thing's going to need to impress me with some really good control, some helpful electronics, and it needs to be rideable. Otherwise, I'm going to be in tears by the first session. These videos only happen because of the support and help from our sponsors. Support the companies that support us. £23,000 is a big old chunk of cash to drop on a bike, but I'd counter that with, for £23,000, you get a hell of a lot of bike for your money. You know what you get? You get something that I didn't think possible. I don't think many people thought was possible 10 years ago. You get a bike with 220 odd horsepower, 217 horsepower, that's rideable, that's usable, that's not completely dominated by its engine. And that is some kind of modern witchcraft that I think is probably worth £23,000 of anyone's money. What a thing. Now, if you've never been to Cadwell Park, imagine a footpath a couple of miles long and has a jump in it. That's basically what you're racing around. It is tight, it is nadgery, it is tiny. It is a phenomenal track on a 252 stroke or a 400 or even a 600. On a litre bike, it is brutal. Now you watch the guys at BSB and they take no prisoners around here. They are so hard, so fast, so on it, but ask any one of them and they'll tell you this is one of the most technical and demanding tracks to ride in the world. Forget the UK, in the world. You have to be millimetre perfect. You have to use every inch of the road to get a good lap time. And at the edge of the track, there's no nice curb and runoff area. It's grass and then a barrier. It is a really technical track and it's unforgiving. For a bike to feel good round here, it has to be really good. If there are any glitches in its performance, in its feeling, in your confidence on it, this place will show them up really fast. First session, I'm not gonna lie, I went out cold tyres deliberately so that I could wobble around and get myself acquainted. And yeah, I've come straight from Misano. Oh, get me with the travel. But I've come from Misano on a Ducati V4S, which made that bike feel like a 600. Huge, loads of space, and all the time in the world to work out where your lines need to be. Has its own challenges, for sure. But coming here, it fried my brain this morning when I went out and I brake, stop, turn, jump, hop, brake. It's taken me a few sessions to get my my bearings, and during that time I didn't really have anything to say about the bike. As we've gone on throughout the day, that's kind of raised a good point in my mind. Getting to grips with this track again, trying to push hard again, being completely knackered and all the full list of excuse book, I should have been finding bits to pick holes in this bike from the minute I rode it. I should have been annoyed by everything, but I just got on and rode it and it just worked. There was nothing that stood out as a problem. Nothing that stood out as, oh, I don't really like that. And for a first time out on a bike I've never ridden before, that is incredibly high praise. This thing's lovely to ride. I won't lie, the first time I did open the throttle, I did a small wee. It's in this tiny little track, winding that power on, there's so much mid-range, and then it just keeps going and building and building and building and building and building, and then another gear, and then another gear, and then another gear. And that's not special, particularly about the Aprilia, that any of the modern crop of litre sports bikes will do that, or 1100 sports bikes, but the Aprilia in particular pulls so hard from lowering the revs that it just feels seamless. I don't want to sit here and pull too many tit-for-tat comparisons between this, the Ducati, the BMW, the Kawasaki, because this place is a very different track and I've not ridden them here either, so I don't think that's fair to do the full head-to-head here. However, the engine on this, having just jumped off the Panigale, the engine on this definitely feels smoother and easier to get the best out of, to me. The Panigale is such an improvement on the early V4 and definitely the V2 engines, but this still has a little edge for me. It's still a little bit smoother, a little bit more progressive. It doesn't suddenly build or snap or charge away from you. It's smooth all the way through the rev range, and it feels to me like it's doing that not with electronics but with the engine. Maybe a subjective thing, but the Panigale does a lot with its electronics to control that engine. This feels like it's more natural. It doesn't feel like this isn't getting what it's asked for, and I like that a lot about a bike. Speaking of electronics, around here this thing's got its work cut out. Everyone knows what the mountain is. If you don't, Google the mountain at Cadwell Park. There's a jump on a track. It's ridiculous, it's stupid, and it's brilliant. That's the only place I've really fried the brain of the electronics for me on this bike. Both wheels off the floor, big jump, landing on the throttle, and it doesn't do anything untoward, it doesn't do anything dangerous, but it definitely has a little stammer while it susses out what you're actually doing and then goes again. I can pick holes in that, but let's be fair, if we brought the Italian test team and Alex Espargaro over and said, this is where we're riding it, they'd probably shake their heads and go, that's not a superbike track, that's a supermoto course, what are you doing? So it's a little wonder that the electronics have a bit of a fart over there. But everywhere else, I've been really impressed. There's a lot of places where you're coming hard on the throttle out of a corner here, through bumps and undulations, and it's lifting the wheel and it's sliding, but it never slams the tyre back down, it never slams the throttle shut, it just pegs you back gently. I found myself looking down at the dash to see if anything was kicking in, and it was, but it does it smoothly enough that I didn't really feel the effects, other than the fact that I wasn't in the grandstands upside down with the bike on fire. Really impressive stuff from Aprilia, and yeah, definitely building. Their old electronics were great, the new stuff keeps getting better. So we're running it on the stock standard Supercorsa SP road tyres, so a little hard compound. The rear has definitely had a hard life, so I'm getting a lot of movement in the bike, which is lovely just to lean on the electronics and use that. So a couple of places where I want to snap the throttle open hard, I want the traction control high, and then places where I'm sliding in third and fourth gear, it feels like it's pegging it back a bit. So the challenge of this track, changing it corner to corner, and again, it's a challenge of not being on full-on track tyres. We're here on a track day. I'm not supposed to be setting lap times. I'm not trying to go for a British Superstock ride. So for a track day bike to ride fast and enjoy and slide around on, I'm having a ball. It's absolutely brilliant. Now, we can't talk about a modern superbike without mentioning electronics, and it's a good thing, because that is what makes this 217 horsepower bike rideable. It's what means you can come out of those first gear hairpins and snap the throttle open with confidence, and the bike meters the power out, and the traction control and wheelie control keep the thing going forward. It's brilliant. We're in a golden era of this stuff. I'm just going to go through the race modes that we've used. So you've got race mode, track 1 and track 2. So they're cyclable on that right hand switch gear. In any of those modes, on the left hand switch gear, you've got the traction control toggle button. So ATC 4, 3, 2, 1, 4. So as you get tired in a session, you want more support. As the tyre wears and you want a little bit more freedom to slide it, you can just dial that up and down while you're going along. One touch and it updates on the screen. Now, on the next bit, you've got all those acronyms. You do have to learn what the acronyms mean, but we've got suspension, engine management or engine power map, engine braking, ABS and launch control. So again, at a glance, you can see which of those ones you're in. All of those are programmable in track 1 and track 2. So if I press and hold the right hand switch gear, we get this setting. I can then scroll through, dial my traction control up and down, wheelie control, set the thing so I've got the presets I want. So what I ended up doing was having track 1 fairly reserved, track 2 a little bit more wild and open, and then I used the traction control buttons to toggle while I was on track. Really nice system, pretty simple and easy to use too. Now, whenever we talk about Aprilias, Ducatis, KTMs, the old reliability question always rears its head. Someone always goes, I'm not buying one of them, they break down all the time. And yeah, you know, I've broken Aprilias before in the past. I've broken Hondas, I've broken Yamahas, I'm not discriminatory when I come to breaking motorcycles, I'll break any of them. But it's really hard to say, test riding a brand new bike, what the reliability is going to be like. The build quality and the finish on it is stunning. Does that mean it's going to last 100,000 miles? I can't tell you. What I can say, and what matters I think with stuff like this, brand new bikes, is warranty, and it's dealer support, and it's dealer backup, and it's how the factory's attitude is to their bikes going wrong. That I think is super important. So I had a little chat with some of the guys at Aprilia. I had a chat with the warranty manager for Aprilia UK. I'm trying to get a feel for what their view is on warranty of these bikes. First of all, 2-year warranty from new, and within that 2 years you can extend it for another either 1 year or for 2 years. So you can make it 4 years in total. On the big stuff like these, I think it's, he said, about just under 500 quid to extend that warranty. So not insane money and good peace of mind. What does the warranty mean if it's not backed up? Absolutely naff all. So then I said, well, what about track use? Because if I'm buying one of these, I'm gonna ride it on track. I'm gonna use it on track. They are warranted for track use. They actually have, within the ECU, it has a sensor that knows the bike's being ridden on track. It knows that it's being held on the stop through the gears, but you know, it can tell when that stuff's happening. So it has a separate mileage counter for fully extreme track use in there. So if you are riding it like a race bike, like a track bike, full gas, it has got its own service light that pops on and tells you when the engine needs service work, when it needs refreshing. So there's no guesswork. There's no, oh, I've done 10 European track days on it, do I need to put a valve service in it? Or do I just keep changing the oil? This thing knows and this thing will tell you, and you can do the work appropriate to the use it's had, which I think is part of owning a track bike. If you're going to ride one hard, you're going to have to do that stuff. So I think that's pretty forward thinking. The only caveat these days is servicing work. Dealers are busy. It doesn't matter what manufacturer you go to, dealers are super busy, and in the summer they are packed out. So if you need servicing work done, get it booked well in advance or do it in the winter. But other than that, at the moment, I can't tell you any more. Now for me, the standout feature of this bike today is the same thing that was the standout feature of the last time I rode an old RSV4. From turn into apex, that section there, tipping it on its side and firing in. I always found the old one very precise. It steered not ridiculously quickly swapping side to side, but once you tip it in and you're leaning on the tyre, it always seems to want to pull into an apex. And if you're not quite there, you can just drop a shoulder a little bit more. It always seems to make that apex. And Al's probably going to show a video of me completely missing an apex now to prove me wrong. But I just like the feel of that front tyre and the way the front end turns. And that was something that was great about the old one, and it's great about this one too. And that's a little bit rare in the big litre sports bike world. I think it's probably its standout feature for me at this point. Limitations, I'd like to try a set of slicks on it. The road tyres are great, but I'm getting to a point with the chassis now where I'm sliding around a lot and I'd like more grip. So next time I'm going to stick a set of slicks on and see if we can really exploit that front end and use a little bit more of the noisy button out in the corners. But as a first ride, as a first impression, really impressed. Same sweet handling chassis, now with a ballistic amount of power. Awesome.